Carpasio is the place of the memories of the partisan war in Imperia. The museum dedicated to the partisans is a well-organized space where you can encounter the roots of recent history. The historic village, with its houses forming a cluster that leans against the terraces, will also oblige you to recover the memory of at least 1,000 years of stories, apparently minimal, and yet capable of narrating the essence of our humanity. Of course, religion, perhaps. The inhabitants of Carpasio were not too religious, and yet the bells are important here too. The big bell called Salvaterra was rung, a prayer for the Lord to stop the natural fury of violent storms that, in some cases, destroyed crops, condemning the population to famine. In these parts there was a real passion for balloons, miniature balloons. They used to cut triangles out of very light paper and make it into the shape of a balloon. The bottom consisted of a wire cage containing a wad of tow or cotton wool soaked in alcohol that burned and heated the air, causing the balloon to rise. Speaking of stories between legend and truth, how can we forget the story of the sanctuary of Ciazzime? Madonna di Ciazzime is a small sanctuary located about 1 kilometer from the village. The church can only be seen from the village of Montalto or from the sea. It was built by sailors who, in the midst of a storm, saw a fire on the mountain that showed them the direction of land. The church was in fact built on the very spot where that fire was lit, which enabled them to save themselves. Here you will find a cuisine that exalts the inventiveness and skill of the women of Carpasio. Among the traditional dishes, a true historical relic stands out: barley bread that is just waiting to be tasted to release a flavor that will take you back to the Middle Ages. This is the so-called barley bread di Carpasina. It is a very old bread that was made especially for shepherds, because it became very dry through baking and could last for a long time. The bread is made from raw barley, wholemeal flour, or durum wheat flour. To taste it, it has to be rubbed with garlic and then soaked for a few minutes. Meanwhile, tomatoes are prepared. Tomatoes clearly have to be ripe and used to be crushed on the top of the bread. Drain well from the water and add a generous amount of oil. Then add tomatoes and an anchovy fillet. Then, finally, a little more oil, and ready, and enjoy.